Hello, everybody. If you are just joining after the fact, I want to tell you that this is our very first Jewish Business Secrets podcast. And I wouldn't rather do it with anybody but our very special guest that we have on right now. His name is Avi Klinger. Guy's an absolute rock star, businessman par excellence.
Yeah.
And
What's up, brother?
and I'm going to be totally honest to all of our viewers out there. My motivation for doing this is twofold. Number one is I notice that whenever I put out Jewish business content, the stuff flies on the internet. And it's my way of fighting or combating, let's call it anti-Semitism, because I'm not going to sit here and cry from the rooftops when anti-Semitism that the whole world says that we're good at business. I don't take that as anti-Semitism. I take that as a compliment. So if the whole world is saying it, I'm starting to actually believe it. So while the whole world is saying it, let's just jump in and let's welcome our guest. By the way, I see Remy Stark is watching. Shout out to Remy. How you doing? Cool. So I have Avi Klinger over here. So Avi, how are you? Welcome to the very first Jewish Business Secrets podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Berel, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate the fact that you chose me as number one, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation with you.
You are number one. You've always been number one. So
Stop it.
Avi is an extremely successful Jewish businessman, and I want to ask you first of all, how long have you been in business, Avi?
This business since 2014, so 8 years.
8 years. Okay.
Yeah.
What were you doing before that?
I was also in the construction industry. I'll explain what I do now in a second, but I was in the construction industry on the tech side. We did lead generation for developers and contractors.
Lead generation for developers and contractors. What were you doing before that?
Before that, we were doing lead generation for people that were looking for mortgages.
What were you doing
before that? I was a GC.
You were a GC. What were you
before that?
Yeah. Okay, so that was your first. Being a GC was your first intro into the business world.
No, before that, I was a stockbroker. But we're working backwards, which is perfectly fine. But if you want to start the other way, I'm more than happy to do that. Whatever you'd like.
Let's start the other way. Talk to me about your rise, in business, because I think a lot of people, they just don't know where to get started, or they don't know how to get their feet wet. And they look at you today with this big, beautiful business with all these employees, which we're going to get to. But what was how did you start?
Well, first of all, I had an epiphany when I was 2 months old, where I was being fed, and I said to my mom, "You got to bottle this stuff and sell it for profit." So I knew from 2 months old that I had a knack for business. No, but seriously, over the course of time, I was told and I felt that, I have this knack for speaking to people and for getting, I don't want to use the word intense, but getting confident and really behind ideas that I believed in over the course of time. And that led to the ability to quote unquote pitch people and to sell people on ideas, and that's why it naturally led to the first position that I had was a stockbroker at a company out here in Long Island. That lasted a few years. Thank God, did well as my first position, and I wanted to take and that ability that I started to notice more and more that I had and use it in other facets and other markets as well. I really didn't like that industry back then, especially. It was a little bit dirty for me. I didn't like it at all. It wasn't really the greatest back then. It's changed a lot these days, but so that was my first gig, was being a stockbroker. I was 2-3 years.
Cool. And lead me, all up until the present day.
Sure. After that, I had. It's interesting. There was a contractor that we hired to do a lot of work on our house, and the guy did a horrible job. And I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, if this guy could charge me however much money it was, I could do the same thing. And that got me into the development industry. And I started small. I started buying properties around my area.
In other words, you sort of saw you saw an opportunity. You saw this
And
GC
the opportunity was that here's this guy come into my house, and like, these guys come in and they're like, they have like, especially with like the women, like, oh, he's got nice blue eyes, and he knows what he's talking about. Yeah, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about, because 99% of people have no idea about the industry themselves. So of course he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And then they come in, and it seems as if 8, 9, 10 out of 10 times there's always an issue, which is one of the businesses that I got into as well. And I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, I could do this myself, So I finished up my house myself. And then from that point forward, I got an investor. We started buying properties, and we started building projects in the 5 towns, which is the area that I live in, Long Island. And we built like mini mansions, and thank God that was a great stint.
So by the way, that's a nugget right there. Is a good businessman, I always say this, sees an opportunity in the market and seizes it. So in other words, if this guy would have came in under price, under budget, above expectations, you most likely would not have gone into the construction business.
Probably. At that point, at least.
So that's a nugget right there, is you be able to spot a lack in the market and fill that lack.
Yeah, you always want to find. One of the easiest ways, and nothing's easy, to become successful is to find niches and within industries that you may currently be in, and just answer the question of what does not exist out there in regard to being able to service people within a certain industry. And then if you could jump on top of that and make it a go, you can become very, very successful from that alone.
Nice. So you're acting as a GC, then you go into getting leads for GCs.
Right. So before that, we always talk about the entrepreneurship part. And like, to me, as a stockbroker, going back for a second, there's an entrepreneurial aspect of that, which is that you have your own book of clients. I found another company that had a similar idea, where it was my own book of clients, but it was in the mortgage industry. Took a break from construction for a second, and the whole concept there was, let's go ahead and provide mortgage brokers.
How old were you at that point?
I was 23 when I started. Right. So the idea was, let's go ahead and provide these exclusive leads for mortgage brokers. Back then, the internet was just coming about as a place for have a business, and got a great concept, which was let's go ahead and sell the zip codes of the United States, and any mortgage broker that bought a zip code, we guaranteed that on our site, every lead that we generated would go to that guy exclusively. And therefore, since it's coming to him exclusive, he'd have an easier time of closing it, because he'd get back to the guys quicker. He was the only guy coming from our site. So to make a long story short, it was a great 7-year run. We killed it. It was right in the heart of when the mortgage industry was doing really, really well. Again, I'm not saying this from the standpoint, God forbid, to pat myself on the back, but I was a top producer there for 7 years. And the reason why I say that is because there was a reason why I felt that was the case. And I always worked harder, and I knew that it wasn't just my efforts that were the reason behind my success. I believe very much in the fact that God is with you as well, especially when you put the effort in, which I guess we'll get to. But
for now, let's leave God out of this. God has nothing to do with this right now. No, I'm just joking.
100%. So
we're going to get to the godly aspect. Right now, I'm looking brass tacks. Obviously,
brass tacks. So here's brass tacks. Here's brass tacks, right? So tremendous success. 7 years in, the CEO of the company makes a really big mistake, totally out of greed. We were the top lead generation company in the country when it came to mortgage brokers, people looking for mortgages and mortgage brokers. It was ridiculous. Like, the guys in our office were making more money than mortgage brokers were at the hottest mortgage time. It was crazy. It was amazing. So in 2000, I don't know, like 5 or something, or sometime around there, I came to him with an idea, which was, hey, you have zip codes that you're selling. There's 22,000 sellable zip codes in the country. And what he did was he divided them into 3 categories. So you had like A paper, so mortgage brokers that wanted to deal with people that had perfect credit. At that point, you had subprime paper, B paper, guys that didn't have. And then there was FHA, VA, government, back mortgages as well. So if you have 22,000 zip codes in the country, he just multiplied it by 3. So now you have 66,000, and he sold each category separately. Now, whatever price we were at the top was $17.50 a zip code. You multiply that by 66,000. The market cap was ridiculous. This is going back to 2005 at its peak. So I came to him. I said, "Hey, man, you know what? Here's an idea." And this is what I always preach to my guys also. You have ideas that are like, verticals within the company, like bring them to us if you have them. I said to him, "Hey, you know what? The construction industry doesn't just have 3 categories. It's got like 40 categories. So take the same 22,000 zip codes, don't multiply by 3, multiply by 40. Now you have $1 billion+ market cap." And his response to me was, "Yeah, sounds good, Klinger. Get back on the phone and make me more money." Something like that. So sure enough, a couple of years later, the guy completely destroys the company out of greed, made stupid mistakes. And I take the concept of the zip codes and I put it into the home improvement arena, started a website called homeimprovementexpo.com. And this was right in the middle of like when 2005, 6, 7, real estate was dead. And contractors are going out of business right and left. And we were able to develop enough leads through that method of exclusivity, where even if we were only getting these guys 3 or 4 leads a month, and in Mortgage Expo, we were getting guys 50, 60, 70, 100 leads a month. They were able to close a very high percentage of them. So
hang on, I'm just curious. So you're at how old at this point? 24 years old?
So at this point, 2005, hold on a second, 24, yeah, something like that, 25, 26, something like that.
You were married at that point?
Divorced.
You were divorced? Okay, so, right. So in other words, you had kids at that point? No.
I had 1, yeah.
Because that's a pretty gutsy move. You were working a stable job. You had a salary, I assume. You had commission.
It wasn't a salary. It was commission only. And I would only take positions that were commission only. I didn't want salaries. That's just the way I am. I mean, there's no ceiling when you're not taking a salary. It's like today where there's a lot of entitlement. Back then it was like, hey, you know what? I'll take no salary as long as there's no cap. And that's how I always rolled.
And how much were you making back then, like on average?
Yeah, when I was with Mortgage Expo, I was making $750,000 to $1 million a year.
Wow.
And this is in my early 20s. And then when I started Home Improvement Expo, it dipped a lot. And this was the first, I can't say mistake, but the first failure that I had was
that's
this
when
first
you started
company.
your own business. It dipped a lot.
Yeah, it dipped a lot. And it dipped a lot because marketing became so expensive that in order for us to continue to provide the amount of leads that these contractors needed in order to close deals, it just became astronomical. Crazy stories. I mean, I don't know how in depth you want me to elaborate on this.
And how much
crazy stories.
And how much do you have in your personal bank account right now? I'm just joking.
Which one?
I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's fast forward. So you were doing well in that industry. You left to go start your own deal. You got hit. Now start working your way up to what you're currently doing, your current business. How you got into it, where you're holding now. Talk to me.
Just one other thing I just want to add to that is that, after that Home Improvement Expo failed, there's always this notion of like, you gotta pick yourself up. Like I went through some time of depression, like real depression over it. But no matter how depressed I was, somehow, some way, I have no idea how, I was still able to get myself out of bed every day, sometimes a bit later than others, which is really a key in regard to moving forward. And that kind of led me to some other, like, I guess you could say, jobs where I was hanging up my entrepreneurial spirit just to, like, bring some money back into the Klinger family. And then a couple of things led to the other. So, for example, I got a job as a project manager for a large development company. And from there is really how this company was created. The concept of what it is that we do started from there. So as HomeCore, we provide safety professionals to active construction sites in the 5 boroughs of New York as ordained by the Department of Buildings. So we're already at the helm and at the, what do you call it, at the hands, if you will, of a government agency where, we're working off of something that they've ordained. So this comes into pivoting, which we'll get to into a second. But the concept that I originally had was, when I was a project manager, was let's take all the protections that developers have, contract review, making sure payments are on par with performance and bank recs, all that stuff, and let's apply that to homeowners, because homeowners are the ones who get screwed more than anyone else. They have no idea what's going on, and statistically, it's like 90% of all homeowners are not happy with the experience with contractors. And I wanted to provide those protections to these homeowners. And what I found out very, very quickly was that the homeowners are extremely difficult to deal with. They're very emotionally attached to the fact that they're already spending $400,000. So if I need to spend another $15,000, $20,000 a year for the project, I trust my guy. And the amount of phone calls I got after these projects were finished were just like, I should have used you. What's going on? I can't believe it. So that doesn't make money. People coming to you after the fact doesn't make you money.
Right.
So one day, someone introduced me to the fact that there were developers out there that were looking for someone just to come by and take a look and do want to go through the site and make sure that everything's okay on safety and on the way that they were building the project. And I'm like, you know what? Let's see what happens. So we, thank God, the Department of Buildings of New York has a database of every project that's going on, contact info and everything. That in itself was a blessing. And we started just pitching these developers, and they all, the mid-level developers loved it. The mid-level developers, 10 stories and down, very underrepresented segment of the construction industry. Also very targeted by the Department of Buildings for violations and whatnot. So the idea of providing for them a service. So for example, let's say they have the greatest management team in the world. That management team finds 97% of all that's wrong. It's the 3% that's left over that they're going to get screwed over on. Our job was to tighten that 3% as much as possible, to reduce the amount of construction errors, and to reduce the amount of times, if not in its entirety, to really reduce the amount of times that we get violations. And it trickled in the beginning, and then it caught on really, really fast. And it became a business in itself over the course of, let's say, 2 years.
So what you're saying is, in the beginning, you didn't really, let's say, look at this as a business. It was something that you sort of had some traction in. Is that right?
So when you're saying I didn't look at it as a business, you're saying in what way? Because I was already a project manager?
Let's say you had discovered that you were able to do this thing better than other people, right?
No one else was doing it for mid-level developers, which is what I found out after I started.
So you were offering this out. You were offering this out to friends, colleagues, acquaintances in the industry?
No, we just started calling people. I hired a couple of sales guys. I was the main sales guy for myself. It was me in a tiny office. I hired some guys out there that have that have a long history of being in the construction industry. I paid them per inspection. So it's kind of like a budget neutral, perfect startup scenario, because if they didn't inspect, they didn't get paid. And I just had to provide them with the inspections. And that really, it increased exponentially after the initial dripping in. So kind of like I was forced into that corner once I realized that homeowners, and this is about the pivot, which again, the homeowners weren't taking it. The pivot was, okay, let's take a look in regard to how the developers will accept it. And that service was something that these, again, mid-level developers, in New York, they fell in love with it, and it took off.
So it's this part of the same theme where you saw a problem in the market, nobody was doing this, people needed it, and you jumped in, you swooped in, and you
just jumped right in.
Right. You said something. You budget neutral.
Yeah. So especially when you start up a company, expenses can destroy you if you don't have the right amount of funding. And even if you have the right amount of funding, if you don't use it properly. So basically, what we did was, or the way that it worked was, again, I would be on the phone selling these guys. I had one other sales guy. He sucked. I got rid of him after like 3 weeks. So it was just me. And I started pounding this list. And so when I got a client and I got them, let's say for 2 inspections a week, moving forward, there was no contract from the standpoint of like, you have to be with me for X amount of time. So I would hire these inspectors that had these great backgrounds in the construction industry, right? My point of being budget neutral was that if they didn't do an inspection, in other words, if I didn't have the business for them that particular day, I wasn't paying them on a salary. I was paying them per inspection. So the only time I had to pay them was when I was making money. That's how it started originally. So I would always say to myself, like, calm down. Okay, fine. It might be a slow week. It might be a slow month. But just remember, from the standpoint of expenses, if you're not selling right now, you also don't have to pay out right now. And that was like a comforting way of getting into the business. And then from that point, it got to a stage where it was continual. It was like 500-600 inspections a week. Wow. A couple thousand a month over the course of the next year. And and again, it still stayed obviously budget neutral. So the profitability was extremely high.
So that's this concept, guys, is a huge concept. This budget neutral thing. This is where a lot of young entrepreneurs make a very big mistake, is that they spend money that they don't have. A big mistake that people, and I've seen people do it, and I did it myself, is when I first started my company, my first 2 companies, I built up the infrastructure of the company, staff, offices, equipment, all this stuff, and hoping that the sales was going to be able to support the infrastructure. But what you're introducing is this concept called budget neutral. I never heard it put like that, where your fixed expenses your expenses float with the sales. If the sales are high, well, then your expenses go up. If your sales are low, then your expenses go down.
Primarily payroll, and it's not necessarily, I'll be honest, it's not applicable in every area of business. It's mostly applicable, I think, in the service industry, where you're starting slower and you don't need to buy inventory to have readily available. When you're selling a service, especially off of manpower, if you establish that relationship with these, in my case, inspectors, look, I'm working my behind off. We already have X amount per week. You're a new guy coming in. Look, it might take 3-4 weeks till I fill you up, but dude, I'm going to fill you up. So just hang with me as I start adding more and more projects to you. As that happens and these inspections come through, you're going to get paid. But if you only do 5 inspections for the week, I'm only paying you in 5 inspections. And 2 weeks from now, when I get you to 30 inspections, you'll be paid in those 30 inspections. And I paid them well. I made sure about that, which is one of the keys, is to pay your employees well. The key guys, very, very important. But going back to this budget neutral, I find that it works best with service organizations when you're first starting it. So it's easier for that entrepreneur, to ease into it.
I have a question over here from Ruth Reisman. She asks, how long did it take to gain full-on traction with consistent efforts?
In this business, like I said, it trickled in for like 6-7 months. Started in September of 2014. March 2015, I landed a monster. And then from that point forward, it was like a snowball effect. So whatever September to March is, and then take it over the next year. So whatever, it took less than a year to hit that first big account. But in the meantime, like smaller accounts came in. That was important too, because you need that confidence to continue. How many times did it go 3-4 weeks where I didn't get a new guy, and God forbid along the way I lost 2 guys. It's a tremendous downer, and you need to be able to get over that. So you have to weather that storm. And at that point, the naysayers come in, and thank God my wife was extremely supportive. And, I unfortunately complained to her every once in a while, and she was there for me. And she's like, just keep doing it. You've proved to yourself that you've done it. Keep moving. And then again, the traction picked up. The smaller guys, more guys came on, and then boom, I hit the first big guy, and then he referred me to other big guys, and that's just what happens. It's really it's an amazing phenomenon how once you get going, you eventually are going to hit, especially if it's a service. It can't just be anything. You can't just throw a dart at the wall and say, I have this idea, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. You need to have conviction and be convinced, hey, you know what, I've done my research, it makes sense, it's the niche that I found, I know it's going to work. You throw a couple of trial balloons out there, you see that guys like it, and then you go for it. This doesn't work like any just idea out of nowhere. Like, you have to have that concept that you see can work, but once you believe in it, then you got to go after really, really aggressively. So it took less than a year.
I always say, you have a business in your first 10 phone calls.
100%. It was probably like two phone calls. I'm kidding. It was probably like 15, 20, 30 phone calls for me. But even before that, it was just when I was in the construction industry, so I saw that there was this.
Hang on, but from what you're saying, you're saying you have to experience certain amounts of success early on. In other words, I know it's popular to say today, just stick with it, but what you're saying is, in the beginning, you had success early on.
Are you talking about when I hit the large account?
Even when you're offering it to your buddies or your colleagues or your
when I first started, look, man, when I first started, I was confident, but I was nervous. There was fear. Like, my back was against the wall. I had to make it work. I knew the concept was something that was going to work. But yeah, like, if I would have continued after if like 3, 4, 5 weeks went by and I didn't get any sales from them, like, if I would have stopped, I don't know where I'd be today. You know what I mean? So, like, even if, as long as you're convinced and you believe, again, within reason though, that what you have is something that will and has the ability to take off, like, you stick with it. If over the course of a long time nothing's happening, then you got to pivot. But, like, you stick with it, and there was early successes, small, tiny successes, which were just like, it was like having, you hear the story about guys go to pitch Donald Trump, and they have no money, so they borrow $100,000 and put it within 2 pockets so they have some confidence. So, like, those little victories along the way are like that. It keeps you going, it pushes you, and that was definitely something which was great encouragement, and it allowed me to keep on going.
So cool. So I'm going to ask you 2 more questions here. This is very interesting, Avi. I've known you for a long time. I didn't even know this about you. So I guess 2 questions. What would be your textbook, if you were to attribute your success to one thing in a textbook secular business reason, what would that be? And then I'm going to ask you the same question. What is one Jewish principle that you would attribute to your success? So let's go to the textbook first, and then we're going to go to the Jewish principle next.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple of things. So first of all, since we were talking about first starting, ignore the naysayers is really, really important.
So that would be your number one textbook?
No. Starting out, right? Today, thank God it's an established business. You have to be a fluid company. You need to be able to pivot. You need to be able to see not just the opportunities, but also the obstacles that are coming your way. Like, you can't just look within your box. You need to see what's coming outside the box, especially like us dealing with a government agency. Again, the Department of Building is a government agency. You never know what kind of curveball they're going to throw. You never know what kind of line drive they're going to hit at the shortstop. You need to be there, and that's something that we've done really, really, really well. And we've always been there for our clients that way, to provide them the service needed in order for them to fit that requirement from the Department of Buildings and not get shut down, not get violations. So it needs to be a fluid atmosphere. You need to have a CEO or team. All the guys that work for me, as far as I'm concerned, are smarter than I am. I'm the guy who, like, I vision, everyone else puts it together, whatever. But you need to be you need to be able to see that. And if you, in the beginning, these are two answers. Beginning, ignore the naysayers if you know you got something. As you develop yourselves, you have to go ahead and be fluid and always keep your eyes and ears open, not just for the curveballs and the line drives that are being hit and thrown at you, but also for opportunity. One of the things that we do is we have guys come in here multiple times a month, and we allow them to pitch us, concepts that they have, preferably within the service industry. We're not looking to invest millions of dollars into companies, but like the experiences that I have, in my life show me that there's a level of confidence that if someone just has a little bit more level of confidence, and like, 10 grand will make it happen. Again, we have to believe in it. Okay, so it's $10,000 in a guy that we believe in, and that could change his entire life. Maybe he's a family guy. Maybe he's not a family guy. But we're always looking for guys to bring us ideas, again, preferably within the service industry, so that we can. One of the things I was told is never forget where you came from. And believe me, man, I don't forget where I come from, and I know the pain and suffering of when you're trying to build something up, and it kills. And I know that guys are going through it right now. Everywhere, whatever. COVID definitely had an impact, and just in general, life throws you curveballs, like I said. So we want to help out as much as possible to people like that as well. So we're always open and willing to sit down with people who have ideas, and especially those niche ideas. And sometimes people may not even know they have a niche idea, and it's a niche idea, because we can just curve it and tilt it a little bit, and all of a sudden it becomes a niche. So it's something that we love doing. We love giving back that way.
So again, if you would boil it down to one thing, your secular reason to success, business principle, and then we're going to go the Jewish principle of success. But
right,
what would you say that is?
Put your head down. God, there's so many. Being
your personal.
Yeah. My personal is just putting my head down, working my behind off, and not listening to the naysayers. We get naysayers today even as well in established business, but you just got to work. You got to work, and you have to have confidence in yourself, and you just push and push and push, and you don't stop. When you know you have something, you just don't stop. You push, and that's it. And you just keep going and going and going, and just severe focus on what it is that you're doing, and that is. There's certain times you need to be within the box, and that's the focus and concentration. There's certain times you need to be outside of the box when you're with your core competency.
I get very affected by naysayers. Like, how do you not, like, first of all, how do you spot a naysayer versus somebody that really cares about you? Another question is maybe the naysayer is right. Maybe they're if they're saying nay for a reason. You can't, if somebody says the sky is blue, you're not going to have a naysayer because it's true.
Right.
So I have a problem.
And the sky's not actually blue. It's clear. It's just a reflection from, the water.
Hey, don't naysay.
So everyone likes to be, especially people who aren't successful, or people that are just a-holes, like to put other people down. So it's very easy to overcome a naysayer,
what happens if it's your father-in-law that means the best, or it's your brother that means the best, or it's your mother or your cousin or your
right? I mean, Dad, you're an accountant.
You're an accountant, right? Exactly.
You're telling me about you're a freaking accountant. What are you talking about? Like, I know what I'm doing, but yeah, no, I hear it. You're married to the daughter. If it's your father-in-law, they want to make sure look, everyone, especially in the case that you're talking about, people want to make sure that their loved ones have security in life. So, they want you to go get that 9-to-5 job, maybe certain people, because they want you to have that security.
By the way, is that security? Is it 9-to-5?
Built for that. I'm one of them. Like that's something which is not me. So, it's once you get to a point where you hear it enough, like you're able to just block it out. Now, if you have an idea, which is like, I want to go ahead and, compete with Fortune 500 companies on the exact same level, and I don't have backing, and I'm going to do it, then, well, yeah, someone's going to be a naysayer, and you may have to think to yourself, well, how the hell am I going to do this? But if you have something which, to this day, we have a massive business. To this day, people are like, yeah, there's no business in site safety. Are you crazy? What are you talking about? There's no business site safety. Oh, so because they threw you a curve. Okay, so we fielded the curveball. Baruch Hashem, we're doing better than ever before. It's like,
Right.
whatever. And then again, you have the people that are just straight out jealous, and you have that also. People don't like. Unfortunately, it's such a horrible thing. People don't like to see other people succeed, especially when they themselves aren't successful. It's a terrible thing. And there are people that are successful
that in the Jewish community. Do you feel that in the Jewish community that people don't want to see? Because I'll tell you what the world says about us. The world says that we really like to see each other succeed. Do you feel that you get some non-farginners?
Few and far between, but it happens.
In other
there are
words,
bad apples out there.
What you're trying to say is Jewish people are not perfect? Is that what you're trying to say, Avi?
Far from it.
Yeah. By the way, I think it's very important to mention Jewish people are not perfect. Even if you look at our Torah, it's riddled with us, making mistakes. But that's what makes us human, and that's what makes God beautiful. Is that He allows people to come back and do well. Okay, let's keep on going. So, okay, great. That's your number one secular piece of advice.
Focus on your core competency.
What's that?
You got to focus on your core competency to keep building it up and building it up. Your core competency is where you make your money from. And then after that, you can look outside the box. So you got to focus.
It's so funny. It's so funny you should say this because as an entrepreneur, I'm always bumping around and trying to find the new shiny, sexy object. And we made a conscious decision in our company that in this year, that we're only in the next 12 months, we're just focusing on our bread and butter, which is our video production company for large firms, and then our executive coaching firm, because that's where we make our money. Is it the sexiest thing in the world? No. Is it new and shiny? No. Does it make money, and does it do good for our clients, and have we perfected it? Yes. Right. So I actually love that. Focus on your core competency. It's funny because you mentioned at one point there's a part in your business where you have to be nimble and be willing to pivot, but there's also there comes a point where you've pivoted, you've perfected, you've done all those things, and you almost have to become rigid again,
right?
And just focus on what it is that you're good at, as you said, your core competency.
Right. Okay. Always, you have to listen. Your eyes and ears need to see what else is going on. Like I said, you do need to look forward and see if there are any obstacles. But what you make your money on is what you have to focus on. Until look, I mean, thank God I have people right now in positions in the company where it frees up a lot of time for myself. Or I myself, when I say focus, I mean I have guys here that focus. It frees up a lot of my time where I'm able to look into other things as well. But from the standpoint of the company as a whole, core competency is the focus.
Nice. Cool. Now let's go to what everybody's waiting for. What is the Jewish secret to your success?
It's a good question. There's so many answers. There really are. I know that, by the way, Berel has a great movie out there. Berel did not pay me to do that, to say what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's a great movie. He also has a piece on giving charity on the 10%. It's an amazing movie. It's a fantastic movie. I've never seen it like it before in my life. It puts it really front and center in regard to what it is to give what we call Meiser, or 10%, a tithe. And it's a tremendous, as you called it, secret within our community. It's commanded to us by God, and it's something that, the only thing actually, as you said very well, which we are commanded to test God, and it's a great thing. I don't want to, just go over that again and again, because it's true. There are other things as well that, from the standpoint of belief, that help us out, and that I've seen within the company, which is really important. So there are multiple stages in a company. There are times when you get stuck, and there are times when you're killing it. A lot of times very often when you get stuck is when people look to God. What am I going to do here? Like, help me out. I'm stuck. I can't move forward, or company hasn't been profitable in a few months. So at times like that, if you've done everything you can, at times like that, you need to take a step back, and you need to look. This is what I do all the time. I have these conversations with whenever this happens, and it happens every once in a while. And you got to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? Give it over to God. Right? We've done everything we can. We've put in all the effort we can. Just got to give it over and just take a step back. And we'll actually, like, if we have a ton of work, we'll take a day off or 2 days off, and like, we'll take a flight out to let's say Europe or something like that, where we believe in going and visiting the graves of past generation sages. It's something which is very comforting to us. We do it all the time, and you put yourself in front of people that can give you the right advice, which is, hey, God's in control, and you did what you can do, and now don't just necessarily sit back for forever, but it's in His hands. So that's one scenario where things aren't going great for the moment, and you just need to take a step back and say, it's all in your hands, God. I've done what I could do. And when I tell you, Berel, sometimes within seconds, it's insane. But once you literally give it over, you give it over. There's a saying that I have on my board, and I'll just translate it. It says, give your issues and your concerns over to God, and He will support you. He will feed you. He will sustain you. Yeah. And if you can really do that, and it's not easy, but if you can, you see things happen very, 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 very quickly from experience. This is not just to make your show sound serious. From experience, tens, if not hundreds of times, I've experienced this with my partner Ben. Salespeople have experienced this. It's just a matter of saying, God, I know that I put my effort in, but at the end of the day, it's all from you. So I'm going to take a step back. Go ahead. You provide it. That's one. That's one thing. But there's another thing which is also really important, which is when you're killing it, right? When you're killing it, people tend to think less about the God connection. It's very, very important that the more you do well, the stronger that connection needs to be, because we believe very much that God always wants to hear from us, and He wants to hear us pray to Him, because it shows that we believe in Him. And there's a way of Him to get it from us one way or the other, because He loves hearing from us, right? Either He can cause you a little bit of a bump in the road, which makes you go back, or He can just continue to give and give and give. And even though He's giving, once that happens, you have a question to ask yourself. And this is what God wants you to do. He wants you to play around with this question. And the question is, did I do that? Did I just kill that meeting? Did I just kill that interview that landed me that $5 million contract? Or did He do it, even though everything in this world seems to have come from me?
Wow.
God wants you to have that fight continuously, because this world is about growth, and that's why there are obstacles in the path of every person over the course of time. And it's the belief in God and making the right adjustments based upon that very often that allows us to get over and grow as people. And especially, one of the areas of the biggest growth for an individual can be that fight between, was it me or was it God? Was it me or was it God? It's very interesting. I had this meeting with my guys the other day, and we have a lot of salespeople, and a few of them are like, hey, you know what? I put my effort in, and whatever happens now, it's in God's hands. So I said, let me ask you a question. I go, why is it that the guys that work their behind off, why do they do better than you? Like, if it's really just a matter of you taking a step back and saying, oh, I made a few phone calls with. Why is the guy out there killing himself? Why is he making more? And there are exceptions to this, don't get me wrong. But why does that effort, who guys who put in a lot of effort, why are they doing better than you? If it's just a matter of taking a step back and say, okay, I made my 25, 30 phone calls today, whatever happens, happens. And I came to the conclusion, which I kind of touched upon before, is because blessing comes from you overcoming wow, I did so well. I killed it. Was it me or was it God? And if you could come full-heartedly every single time and say, no matter how well I did, no matter how much I killed that meeting, no matter how much money I made, it's not me. It's not me. Once you go to it's all my hands, it's all I did it, then I find that it leads to issues. If you're able to completely say, you know what, I know that it looks like I did it. I know that I said the right things. I know what came across great. I had the nicest suit in the world on, and this and that. And I'll even say, if I could add, and I know this is going on, and it's not becoming too much of a mumbo jumbo over here, but I want to say something to your credit, if that's okay. Being this is the first episode, you could always adjust later on, so don't worry about it. Which is that I've seen you get called out on LinkedIn for saying, guys, I'm gonna have the greatest day today. I'm gonna kill it today. This year's gonna be the best year I ever had, and blah blah blah. And people say, Berel, don't you understand? It's already been determined how much you're gonna make at the beginning of the year by God. And on one hand, it's true, but on the other hand, there needs to be a vessel for that blessing to come down. And if you're not working hard and you're not going after it, then you're not giving God the opportunity to test you and have you answer the question of, is it me or is it God? Once you get into that realm of answering that question, then God could take that, how do you say shefa in English, that the blessing and the plentifulness that has already been ordained for you, if you will. He now has a vessel to bring it down to you. So to me, it's really knowing that no matter what happens in life, it's all from God. And that's how I live my life. At least I try to. It's not easy, but
I love it. I absolutely love it. And before we wrap up here, I also want to just ask you one question. So, Avi, you have been you were actually one of our first clients. HomeCore is one of our first clients in Wealthy Executive Coaching Firm. You're working with Jay, one of our rock star coaches. And I just wanted you to maybe share some of your experience, what you feel executive coaching has brought to you and your organization, and just your experience working with my firm and benefits that you feel that's given you in your business, in your life, in your career.
Right. So 100%. Working with Jay is it's very special. The insights that he's been able to give us. I'm gonna take a step back. You can't learn experience. You need to live experience. And Jay having 11, 12, 13 years more of business experience. He's been through more than I have, and he has experienced more than I have. And again, like I said, that's not something that you can learn. That's something that you can only be told over by. And you can't experience something that he's experienced that you've never experienced before. You could be told about it. So the insight that he has in regard to directing us, we know doesn't just come from a book. The book that it comes from is the book of Jay. I don't know if I'm going to say his last name, of Jay. And it's so special and it's so impactful in regard to a lot of the decisions that we've made in the company. And it's not that we're looking for him to make the decisions for us, but especially when it comes to difficult decisions, that insight that he brings helps myself and my partner, Ben, make what we feel are the best decisions possible.
So a person might say, I'll be honest with you. A lot of times I am reluctant to approach successful business people. Happen to be you and I have a relationship because we've done business in other areas before. So when I approached you about, signing up with our coaching firm, I felt comfortable to do it. But sometimes I shy away from approaching very successful businessmen or women because I think in their minds they might think, oh, what do I need this for? I'm already successful. What is a coach going to give me? What is he going to bring me? If he's really so smart, then why is he a coach? So how would you answer? How would you answer that?
Yeah, I would tell you that you're going to have people like that, and you're not going to get them. And you're going to You're going to have people like that at that moment in time they might be struggling with an issue, and you might be telling them, hey, you know what? This particular guy that I have in mind, I feel would be great to help you answer that issue, and I think that you should give him a shot. You're not going to close everyone to something you need to internalize, but you have to keep opening your mouth. You never know. Like one story that Jay told us, and this kind of fits in, which is like, he bought a company, and the company became a dud. But before it became a dud, another company found out that Jay bought that company, and they asked Jay if if he'd be interested in buying them. And he said yes. He bought them, and that company killed it. So the point is, you got to keep talking. You got to keep opening your mouth, and you should never feel this guy's too big for me. Like I said, you'll have guys that you'll never get, but you never know when that rock star, like you like to say, which is great. I love when you call people rock stars. You never know when you're going to hit that rock star, because maybe just that second they're dealing with something that like they just don't have an answer for, and they need that extra help. And that's where Berel Solomon was able to come in and give you this amazing guy, whether it's Jay or whoever else it is, that was able to actually help them. And once they see that help was there, well, what else could this guy, Jay, help us with? And not just that, if everyone that you have to offer is as personable as Jay, I think that guys like him will establish very long-term relationships for you with these people, because of their insight, because of their they're a mensch, and they're able to go ahead and provide what it is that they know in such a sweet and impactful and caring way. The caring, that comes from his end. I mean, we're doing it for a year with him already, so obviously, that's going to increase. But just from the beginning, that like the care and like the desire to help. You're talking about successful people, and they really want to help everyone, and that's how we look at Jay. And I would recommend to anyone, no matter what stage of business they're in. It's part of like what we were doing, where we were giving like that third eye inspection to show these guys, hey, you're missing this, you're missing that, right? You have 97% covered, but that 3% is where you're missing out on, and we found it. You never know. Like, these guys could be that, cover that bridge of that 3% and close it, and give you guys a piece of mind, knowing that you have an answer. So I recommend it.
Well, you were one of our first clients in Wealthy Executive Coaching, and definitely my first client, the first interviewee here for the Jewish Business Secrets podcast. So I want to thank you for both those things. By the way, if anybody's listening to this or watching this, and you're interested in executive coaching for you, yourself, your company, your executives, your executive team, please reach out to me or my office. We'd be happy to hear from you and set you up with a complimentary session. And it was just, Avi, it was just an absolute pleasure and an honor having you here, and excited to see the next level and the next stage in your career, and keep on making us proud, man.
I really appreciate it. Can I add one more thing?
Please.
I mentioned before that, we listen to people's ideas and the people that need that help. If there's anyone within your podcast that listens, I hope this is okay, and they're in that position where they need, help getting started. I don't know if I'm going to get my phone number out or whatever the case is. If that's okay with you, we have no problem taking phone calls. However you want to do it, you let me know. But we're more than happy to have guys start with a conversation and come in and present. So if I give my phone number out, let me know. If not,
at your own risk. At your own risk.
I don't have to answer the phone calls.
Go for it.
It's 917-780-5496. If Iris Lodowitz can do it, I can do it also.
Goodbye, Iris Lodowitz.
All right, buddy.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining, everybody.
It was great. Be well.